Ty here. Hope everyone is doing well. Also, Merry Christmas, by the way. Hope you guys have been enjoying your holidays. Things have been a little bit chaotic around here. Not necessarily in a horrible way, but it's been very busy on my end, so I apologize for the erratic uploads that have occurred as a result. But we're here now, and we'll be at least available for the next few days, so we'll have some content heading your way here, and it looks like the weather is going to be aiding in that as we actually have slight risk on today and also for Thursday. Thursday is a day that I'm a little bit more interested in. Not too concerned about either one of these days, but definitely going to be keeping an eye on these. As far as today's threat, not really a whole lot expected out of that. There are severe thunderstorm warnings in effect over here just around and just to probably the south of the Dallas Metroplex here. We're going to be mainly expecting hail for this threat today. There is a chance of a marginal wind gust, and while the tornado threat is low, I would call it a non-zero type of day. There could be enough dynamics for a sneaky little tornado or two, but don't expect any major outbreak or anything of the sort there as far as severe weather is concerned. When we go towards the day 3 outlook, obviously we aren't in range to get the specifics in regards to our hazards here, but it's in a very similar area, and we're going to get into the details of how the dynamics kind of shape up for this, because I've been watching this for a little bit. Even though I haven't been able to post videos, I still do watch the weather either way. I almost often will end up looking at weather models either during my lunch break with my job or just whenever I can, really. But I try to post things to where you guys are able to find it a little bit easier, if you will. But in any case, though, another thing, of course, to talk about is going to be winter weather. I'm sure some of you already know what you're going to be dealing with in regards to a white Christmas. The best chances for a white Christmas, of course, are going to be out towards the west. On Christmas Day itself, we're going to be warming up a good bit, too, across the eastern half of the country. Well, really the entire country as a whole here. But outside of the mountainous terrains, depending on how much snow you have on the ground, that will make or break your chances of having a white Christmas. If you're out towards the deep south, really just about anywhere that's not mountainous towards the U.S. as a whole here, don't expect a white Christmas. Even towards the northeast, a lot of spots that usually would have good confidence in having a white Christmas may not see that this time. And we're in particular looking at the exact requirement that you would need to have a quote-unquote white Christmas. You would need at least 1 inch of accumulative snow, and the best chances, of course, are out towards the northwest right now. So not really a whole lot going on Christmas Day. Even severe weather is going to be, well, almost non-existent, I would say. I wouldn't be surprised if a sneaky little marginal risk might pop up over here towards the Gulf Coast, but I wouldn't be too concerned with that either. As of right now, though, there's only a general thunderstorm outlook. No severe weather expected. As we go towards the weather models here, this is how things are going to be looking as we head towards Christmas and also beyond that point. Now, things get really interesting after we go beyond Christmas here. This is our little feature that's going to bring our little small chance of severe weather here. Like I said, wouldn't rule out the opportunity for a strong storm or two over towards the Gulf Coast states. But if you look at this trough here, it's kind of decaying at this point, so not going to be expecting a whole lot out of that. The day after Christmas, though, the 26th, does look a little bit more interesting. More stout trough comes into play here, so depending on if we can get some good moisture here and a little bit of instability, might get something to fire off here. I think it'll be a pretty similar look to how today is. Maybe the threat might shift a little further to the east depending on how this trough progresses. But in any case, though, the threat probably is most likely going to be hail, damaging winds. Still saying maybe non-zero tornado threat type day, but nothing significant based off of this. But it's really after this point where things start to really ramp up in regards to activity. We start to see much more in the way of troughing as we go further along here, and especially after we start 2025, that's when things really start to get interesting. We start to see potential for a winter setup that's going to be occurring right around New Year's Eve, and then as we get into New Year's Day, we'll see this move out to the northeast. But this is going to set the stage for our next trough to come in. And then with this, I do think this is where the severe weather chances start to increase just ever so slightly. You can see this little ridging going on out here. Depending on how this trough evolves, we could be talking something a little bit more notable. Like I said, nothing set in stone. Still very far out at this point, 222 hours. We're getting close to that 10-day period here. So way too much can change to really have a lot of confidence in this. But this is definitely a look that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on. And then further along, to kind of compound the big change in weather that we're going to have, I do think towards the very beginning of 2025, probably by the first weekend, I do think lake effect snow is going to start to come into play, along with a major cool down towards the eastern half of the US here. And then from that point, we just see trough after trough begin to come in, especially some notable troughs towards the end of the model run here. Now, I've been seeing that trend for a couple of days now, and then even in our January and our winter outlooks, we've been kind of seeing a look where mid-January, really the first half of January, could be pretty cold out towards the east, but also pretty active as well, especially as we go towards those first couple weeks. So there's going to be a lot that we're keeping track of here. And the funny thing is, if we look on the Euro, it's not going to be too dissimilar. These models were uploaded just about at the same time here. Only difference with the Euro is, other than it being a different model, is we only have 24 hours of difference here. We can go to 360 hours versus 384 on the GFS. But in either case, though, we see troughs occurring both around Christmas Eve today, and then also on the 26th heading to the 27th. The progression is a little bit different, don't get me wrong, but they're looking relatively congruent. Interesting thing to make note of here is there's a more notable dip with this trough here as we head to the 29th and beyond, so could be some cooler temperatures ahead. But as far as winter precipitation is concerned, not too concerned with that. As we go beyond that point, it's interesting to make note of the trough that we're going to be seeing heading into the deep south with this run in comparison to the GFS. It wasn't quite as notable from what I was looking at here. We also have that GFS run right here in the bottom left corner to make comparisons as well. But as we go further along here, it's a pretty similar deal. The troughs are pretty stout, especially as we get towards January 4th of next year. So it's crazy to think that we could be starting the new year off with quite a bang here. In fact, the way this ridge looks a little bit more impressive, maybe a little bit more suspicious in regards to severe weather chances. Timing, of course, is going to be an issue along with other factors, but definitely seeing some looks here. I wouldn't even go as far as to call this a signal yet, but definitely seeing a look here that kind of garners my attention here, so to speak. Very cold air expected to come in too, based on the Euro's look, by the time we get towards the 7th and beyond here. Now we're going to be right at the edge of the Euro's range here as we get into the morning of the 8th, and as we saw in GFS here, big trough comes in right around this time frame here. Not too far out of sorts in comparison to some of the long range outlooks that we've done, as I've said before. So definitely interested to see what this time frame has to offer here. Again, a lot can still change, nothing set in stone, but I've been seeing a few trends that have been pretty consistent with what we're seeing here now. Now obviously we'll have to see what tomorrow brings and beyond, but still very interesting stuff going on here as we start out 2025. So how is this going to look in regards to our temperatures here, going only to the GFS now? As I said before, we're going to be dealing with a little bit of a warming trend, particularly after Christmas. It's not going to be super significant, but there is a little warm sector right here over towards the Gulf Coast, which again kind of garners my interest in potential severe weather maybe. Timing is still going to be a factor, but in any case though, that surge of warm air is going to continue, especially as we get right up to New Year's Eve. By the time we get to New Year's Eve, warm air is still kind of hanging around. See how it's in stark comparison to the Euro, where that trough kind of kicks in a bit, and we'll see that cold air begin to dominate just a little bit before then. As we bring in New Year's Day, it's going to be relatively mild towards the eastern half of the country, but if you look out west, you can start to see that cold air begin to kick in at this point, and some notable cold air at that. We're starting to get into those single digit temperatures towards the Dakotas. Even a few below zero temperatures seem more than possible at this point. And this is how we bring in our 2025 for these areas, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on if you like the cold. But as we go further along here, this is where we start seeing that notable warm sector beginning to pop up over towards the deep south. You can actually see the contrast here between the warm and cold air here. And this is where I start thinking those severe weather chances really begin to go up. When you start seeing sharp contrast like that, that's a pretty strong cold front that's going to be coming in here. And as we go further along, look at how that cold air begins to just pour in from the north at this point and beyond here. So could be some significant temperature changes ahead here as we head into those first couple of weeks of January. And really, if I were to go as far as to say any records would be broken, I think it would be during this time frame here. Keep in mind, again, 16 days out, excuse me. I'd have much more confidence in this if it was 16 hours, but 16 days out, way too much room for things to change. Just because you see this on the screen here does not mean it is guaranteed to happen. But in any case, though, if this were to happen, we could even see some of those 30s sneaking their way into Florida by morning here. So, like I said, keep an eye on these dates for now. Of course, I'll be making more videos as time goes along, but in the meantime, as we look at the precipitation potential here, like I said, severe weather possible, maybe even expected at this point. So I'm going a little bit out on a limb here. Not expecting major severe weather out of it though. But as we go further along here, watch how the pattern really begins to pick up after we cross that threshold into 2025 here. Immediately as we get into the evening of New Year's Day, we start to see a wintry system begin to kick in on New Year's Day. Then after that point, we start to see, just a northeast wintry system. I wouldn't call this a nor'easter by any stretch here, but it's interesting to see this because we haven't really seen much in the way of action for the northeast. Snow has been relatively scarce over towards this area outside of the lake effect areas. So we're going to see that pass through, and then after that point, this is where things really start to get interesting. Now, some people who are looking for snow, this may be a dream come true for you seeing this model run, but again, I hate to dash any hopes here, but keep in mind, we are looking past 300 hours out. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get snow from my area, take this for face value. Remember the time frame. Don't want to dash your hopes, but I don't want to build your hopes up and then have you angry with me. Because me personally, I don't mind seeing snow every once in a while. It's not great for if I'm trying to work or anything, but you get what I'm saying there. But in any case, though, very stout snowstorm setup could be coming into play here as we get towards the 8th. And again, like I mentioned before, GFS and Euro are kind of showing a pretty similar deal occurring here. Now, if this were to play out, a lot of questions would remain for the deep south, and the main reason why I would say that is because a lot of times, especially with the south, the moisture often will outrun the cold air. Now, if we can get just a little bit of remnant moisture, we could get possibly up to about ½ an inch. Could be some slushy snow, but will be a cool sight for some of us in the deep south. Now, a couple other things I'm kind of leery of with these storm systems, if they were to occur during this time frame, also will be, of course, the lake effect machine kicking in as well. So if you're over towards Cleveland, if you're over really anywhere towards western or eastern Michigan, keep an eye on this. Of course, Buffalo, Rochester, and other areas over just off of Lake Erie and such might see some significant snow out of this before all is said and done here. But in any case, a lot to keep track of, especially as we get further towards the long range here. January does look like it could very well be an interesting month. So make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for future updates. I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, take care, Merry Christmas, and I'll see you next time.